They thought the haunting ended when they left that old apartment, but 2 weeks later, they met again at a small cafe on Maple Avenue. What started as a reunion soon turned into something far more chilling, because some stories never truly end. This is The Haunting at Brookdale Apartments. Part 1, The New Place. The main character of this story is Ethan, a journalist for Metro Weekly. He's also a young fiction writer whose short stories have started gaining attention online. Originally from a small town in Georgia, Ethan had bounced between countless rented rooms since his college days, just like any out-of-state student trying to make it in the city. Most recently, he'd been living in a small rental house near Jefferson Avenue, but after clashing with his landlord and finding the place too noisy to focus on his writing, Ethan decided it was time for a change. After a short search, he found a new spot he really liked. A modest apartment complex just off Maple Street, close to the downtown area. It was quiet, affordable, and seemed perfect for working from home. After a few days of unpacking and settling in, Ethan started getting to know his new surroundings. The complex was small, 8 studio units in total, split into 2 facing rows with a narrow courtyard in between. Each room was around 150 square feet. What made the place different from most other cheap rentals was that nearly everyone there was already working. There weren't any students this time. In Ethan's row, the corner apartment was rented by a nightclub dancer named Amber. Like most people in her line of work, she slept through the day and left for work after 7 p.m. She didn't talk to anyone. No greetings, no small talk, just silence, as if no one else existed. Her provocative outfits often caught Ethan's attention. He even thought about writing a story inspired by her, but she never once looked his way. Eventually, he gave up on the idea. At the far end of the hall lived a young cop named Luke, fresh out of the academy. Luke was strange. Ethan had never seen him sober at home. He worked long shifts and came back late, stumbling drunk almost every night. Next door to Ethan was Mark, a guy in his late 20s who worked for a government office downtown. Mark was obsessed with philosophy. Once, he cornered Ethan for hours, talking about socialism, materialism, and how religion was the opiate of the masses. Thankfully, Mark wasn't home much. Across the courtyard, the first 2 apartments were rented by 6 factory workers, 3 men sharing one room, and 3 women in the other. They worked hard, lived cheap, and were rarely around before 10 p.m. Every morning, they were gone again before sunrise. The last unit on that side, however, was vacant. No one ever mentioned it. There was something weird about it. It looked sealed up, almost like it hadn't been touched in years. No one had ever asked to rent it either. When Ethan once asked the landlady about it, she shrugged and said the unit wasn't ready for tenants yet. The college girl next to that empty apartment and directly across from Ethan's lived Lena, a third-year student at the State University of Commerce. Ethan had met her a few times and immediately found her charming, smart, quick-witted, and playful. She loved debating him, often challenging his views on literature and life. Sometimes she even made him admit she was right. Lena was in class most of the day, so Ethan usually saw her after 6 in the evening when she got home. They'd sit outside the complex together, 2 plastic chairs facing each other, talking about everything under the sun. Her presence was like fresh air to him. The more time they spent together, the more Ethan realized she was becoming a part of his life. His writing, his thoughts, even his habits. He started rushing home after every hangout or work event, no matter how late or how drunk he got. He just wanted to see her again, to hear her voice. Her teasing words, her scent when she helped him to his door, it all made his heart ache in the best possible way. Sometimes he even pretended to be more tired than he really was, just so she'd fuss over him a little longer. Meanwhile, Officer Luke began acting strangely toward Ethan. He'd try to talk, but always came off rude, bitter, like he was nursing some unspoken grudge. Ethan suspected the reason. Luke was jealous. Everyone could see that Lena liked Ethan. One night, Ethan came home late. As he fumbled with his keys, Luke suddenly appeared from the shadows, drunk and swaying, reeking of whiskey. He grabbed Ethan by the shoulders and slurred, open quote, You've seen her, haven't you? You love her, don't you? That slut. She... Close quote. Ethan shoved him back, keeping his voice level. Open quote, "If you ever talk about Lena like that again," he said, "I'll break your damn jaw." Close quote. Luke's eyes went wide, red veins spidering through the whites. He pointed a shaking finger at Ethan. Open quote. "Lena, oh Jesus, you're dead. You're so dead." Close quote. Ethan braced for a fight, but Luke didn't swing. Instead, his eyes welled up and he turned away, stumbling back into his apartment. Moments later, Ethan heard laughter, harsh, broken laughter, followed by muffled screaming from behind Luke's door. It was the kind of sound that made your stomach twist. When Ethan told Lena about it, she just shrugged. Only when he pressed did she admit, hesitantly, open quote, "He used to like me, but I never liked him back. He's rough, drunk all the time. He scares me." Close quote. After that, Luke didn't try to talk to Ethan again. He just drank more, came home later, and fell deeper into whatever hole he was in. Time passed, and what was bound to happen, happened. Ethan confessed his love to Lena, and she said yes without hesitation. It was the happiest time of his life. For the first time, he felt like everything made sense. His writing, his work, his world. Everything seemed brighter, softer, more beautiful. Like any other couple, they shared promises, whispers, long looks, and gentle kisses. They were in love. And Ethan truly believed. He was the happiest man alive. Part 2, Dark Shadow on the Roof. That night, Ethan was sleeping soundly when a nightmare jolted him awake. His heart raced as he lay there, trying to calm himself back to sleep. Then he heard it. A voice. At first, he thought he was imagining it. But no. There it was again. Someone humming softly, somewhere nearby. The sound floated through the air like a lullaby carried on a cold wind. Ethan held his breath, listening harder. The voice was coming from the vacant apartment across the courtyard. He frowned. Nobody lived there. Who could be singing at this hour? He reached for his phone on the nightstand. 1:12 a.m. Everyone in the complex should have been asleep long ago. Even the latest risers, himself and Lena, never stayed up past midnight. Curiosity got the better of him. Ethan slipped out of bed, padded quietly to the window, and peeked through the blinds. What he saw made every hair on his body stand on end. Up on the roof of the empty unit, something was sitting. No, perched. A shadowy figure, black against the night sky. Its legs dangled over the edge, impossibly long, nearly brushing the ground below. They swayed lazily back and forth like a child's would on a high chair. The thing was holding 2 ropes. At the end of each rope was a noose, looped, knotted, swaying gently like pendulums, and it was singing. The voice was soft, breathy, like someone murmuring into a pillow. Ethan strained to make out the words, "Cold wind on a summer night, my eyes still sting, lost in the dark where no one sees a thing, carrying sorrow the heart can't hide, waiting forever for love to arrive." The tune was beautiful, melancholic, haunting, almost human. Ethan had never heard anything like it before. Then the song changed. "If I were a kite, you'd be the string. Without you, I'd never dare to fly." It was sweet, simple, and yet so lonely it made his chest ache. The voice trembled like it was singing from the bottom of a deep well, fading, echoing. Without realizing it, Ethan had started tapping his fingers softly against the window frame, keeping time with the melody. His body felt light, his mind slipping somewhere between dream and trance. The world outside faded away, only the song remained. Then a harsh cough snapped him back to reality. The cop, Luke, hacking somewhere down the hall. Ethan froze. The figure was still there, its silhouette still swaying, still singing. But now, in the dim moonlight, it looked straight at him. He wasn't dreaming. Terror rooted him in place. His throat tightened, but no sound came out. He tried to scream, to move, to do something, but his body refused. Then, bang! He slammed his palm against the window pane. The noise shattered the silence. When he blinked, the roof was empty. No shadow, no nooses, no sound. Just darkness and the distant hum of the city. Hallucination, he whispered shakily to himself, though he didn't believe it. Not for a second. Still trembling, Ethan switched on every light in his apartment. His t-shirt clung to his skin, drenched in cold sweat. He changed clothes, left the lights on, and sat on his bed staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the image of that figure, its long legs, the ropes, that voice. He didn't sleep again that night. Every creak of the building, every flicker of light from the street outside sent shivers crawling down his spine. He imagined things watching him, from the corners, the bathroom mirror, even from behind the walls. By morning, he looked like he hadn't slept in a week. The next day, he told Lena everything. The shadow, the singing, the nooses, All of it. She stared at him, wide-eyed. "Ethan, you're scaring me," she said softly. "Please, don't ever talk about that again." So he didn't, at least not to her. But the songs, those strange, sad melodies, stuck in his head like splinters. He found himself humming them unconsciously, while eating, before bed, even at work. Sometimes he woke up whispering the lyrics under his breath, and the dreams came back, always the same. The dark figure standing by his bed, its long legs casting a shadow over him, the two nooses swaying gently, its rough, cold fingers brushing his cheek before tilting his head up, forcing him to look. And beneath the long hair and hollow eyes, it was Mark. Mark, the government office worker. But not the Mark he knew. The face was pale, rotting, the mouth split ear to ear and filled with jagged teeth. Maggots crawled from the corners of his eyes. Ethan tried to shove him away, but the flesh crumbled under his hands like wet clay. The skull fell from its neck, bouncing across the floor. He woke up screaming. After that, he couldn't look at Mark the same way. Mark still rambled on about politics and philosophy, oblivious to Ethan's discomfort. Ethan forced himself to nod, but his stomach turned every time the man smiled. A few nights later, Ethan came home late. The street was quiet, the air damp from rain. He stepped out of the cab, slipped through the narrow gate, and started walking toward his apartment. Then, that sound again, the same soft humming. It was coming from the vacant unit. Ethan froze. His skin went cold, his legs trembling. He wanted to turn and run, but his eyes drifted, almost involuntarily, to the source. The door to the empty apartment was slightly open. A faint, flickering light leaked through the crack, like candlelight. And the song, oh God, the song was beautiful. It wrapped around him like silk, pulling him closer. Every step felt lighter, as if the melody itself were carrying him forward. He felt weightless, calm, even euphoric. The world seemed to glow. He reached the doorway. The hinges creaked. The door opened wider on its own. Ethan's breath caught in his throat. Inside, two nooses hung from the ceiling. Beneath one, a woman's body swayed gently, dressed all in white, her long black hair covering her face. The other rope was empty. Around her feet lay a heart-shaped wreath made of white roses, ringed by burning candles. On the wall behind her, written in what looked like blood, were the words, "I only had one simple dream, to stay forever beside the one I love, to share every tear, every joy, every sorrow." "Hey," said a voice beside him, low and cold. Ethan spun around. The dancer Amber was standing there, staring at him with wide, sharp eyes. "What the hell are you looking at?" she asked. He blinked and turned back toward the apartment. The door was closed. No light, no candles, no body, just silence. "You didn't see," he stammered. Amber frowned. "I saw you, standing there like a zombie staring at a locked door. You trying to hypnotize it or something?" Her tone wasn't mocking, it was oddly gentle, curious. Ethan could tell she wasn't drunk. For the first time, she even smiled faintly. "I'm fine," he muttered. "Just couldn't sleep." "Yeah," she said, tilting her head. "Well, if you ever figure out what's going on here, tell me. I'm Amber." Before he could answer, she turned and walked off down the hall, her heels clicking softly against the concrete. Ethan stood there a moment longer, then went inside and locked the door. He sat on the bed, exhausted but restless, the words from the song echoing in his head. "You are with me like a story untold, a ghostly love from long ago, and one day I'll leave you quietly, without a single word goodbye." He whispered the lines to himself again and again, trembling, but somehow saying them made him feel calmer. He left the lights on all night. The next few days passed in a blur. Lena was still out of town visiting family, texting him every day, unaware of how frayed he'd become. Ethan barely slept. The melodies haunted him constantly, beautiful, tragic, and utterly alien. He couldn't find them anywhere online. Not the lyrics, not the tunes. Finally, one sleepless night, he opened his laptop and searched for the first song. "Cold wind on a summer night, my eyes still sting." Nothing. Then he tried the kite song. Again, nothing. Desperate, he searched for the last one, the one about the ghostly love story. This time, there were results. A poem titled "A Sad Rainfall," written by someone using the pen name The Watcher. Ethan stared at the screen. His hands shook. Who was The Watcher? And how did they know the song? He typed the name into the search bar and hit enter, never realizing that the moment he did, the faint sound of humming began again, just outside his window. Part 3, The Watcher. At a small cafe on 34th Street, just off Lexington Avenue, Ethan sat nervously, his leg bouncing under the table. He checked his phone for the 5th time in 2 minutes. The door chimed, and a slim young man with a quiet presence stepped inside. He scanned the room, pulled out his phone, and dialed. Ethan's phone buzzed immediately. He raised his hand. The man walked over. Ethan smiled politely. "Hey, I'm waiting for Nick. Are you him?" The man gave a faint, almost shy smile. "Yeah, you must be Ethan?" They exchanged a few pleasantries. The man, who introduced himself by his online alias, The Watcher, spoke softly, almost too quietly for the noise of the cafe. He rarely laughed, and when he did, it was only a small half-smile, never a full grin. Yet he wasn't distant. In fact, he seemed surprisingly open and direct once the conversation began. When he learned Ethan was a journalist, his demeanor relaxed. "So," The Watcher teased, "how many fake stories do you write in a week?" Ethan chuckled awkwardly. The man's tone was calm but sharp. He had the air of someone used to reading between the lines. He mentioned having worked for several major publications before turning his focus to web development and architectural design. Now, he said, he was planning to launch his own design firm and expand his site's reach. After a few minutes of small talk, Ethan decided to cut to the chase. "Are you the author of a poem called A Sad Rain?" "Yes," The Watcher replied, raising an eyebrow. "Why? Is there a problem with it?" "Not exactly," Ethan said carefully. "I just wanted to ask, when did you write it?" "Summer of 2004, I think." "Why? You sound like you're doubting I wrote it. What's going on? Someone else claiming it's theirs?" "Oh, no, please don't get me wrong," Ethan said quickly. "It's just, there have been some strange things happening around me lately, and somehow that poem is part of it. I don't even know how to explain." Ethan hesitated. He hadn't planned to tell a stranger about what had been haunting him. But if this man really was the original author of the poems that kept reappearing in his life, he might hold the key to what was happening. He took a breath and tried another approach. "By the way, do you know this one?" Ethan recited softly. "Cold wind of summer night, eyes grow sore, alone in a place unknown before. My heart holds something dark and deep, waiting for someone I can't keep." The Watcher froze. His eyes widened slightly. "That's my poem," he said quietly. "But I never published that one. How the hell do you know it?" Ethan swallowed. "And this one? If I were a kite, you'd be the string. Without you, I wouldn't dare to fly." The man's expression turned tense. "That too. What's going on, Ethan? You're starting to freak me out." Ethan's pulse quickened. He knew there was no turning back now. He leaned in, voice low. "I think I need to tell you everything, from the beginning. It started when I moved into a new apartment near here. Ever since then, weird things have been happening, things I can't explain." But before he could continue, the Watcher interrupted him sharply. "Wait, you live near here? On 14th Street? Ethan blinked. "Yeah. Why?" The Watcher frowned, almost as if recalling something unpleasant. "I used to live there a year ago. Do you happen to know a guy named Luke? He's a cop. And another one, Mark, works for some government office." Ethan's stomach sank. "Yes, they still live there." The Watcher leaned back and gave a small, uneasy laugh. "Yeah, I used to hang out with them. Luke's the nice one, quiet, polite. Mark's a bit of a weirdo, but he's all right. I used to live right next door to Luke." Ethan stared at him, his voice barely above a whisper. "I live in that apartment now." The Watcher's smirk faded. He rubbed his chin slowly, eyes distant, as if trying to remember something long buried. "That room," he murmured. "Well, looks like you and I share more than a few coincidences. Same apartment, same poems, same strange feeling that something's not quite right." He met Ethan's eyes and gave that same half smile again, though this time it felt heavier. "Guess we've got a lot to talk about." Part 4. Investigate. "It doesn't look much different from when I lived here," said Nick, the Watcher, following Ethan into the small, dimly lit room. "Those 2 rooms down the hall were always empty, dead quiet too, like the air itself was holding its breath." He pointed to Lena's old room and the vacant one beside it. Ethan interrupted. "That one's rented now, actually, but the tenant went home to visit family about a week ago." Nick had come by that afternoon, intrigued by Ethan's eerie stories. He'd promised to help figure out what was really going on in this creepily little apartment complex. "When I lived here, my desk used to be right there," Nick said, pointing near the window. "I'd stay up late working, window wide open. Never saw any shadow, no hanging girl, nothing. Oh, by the way, that girl from the bar at the corner, she's still around? Ethan nodded. Nick chuckled. Man, that girl's got a face colder than a morgue slab. Ever look at her and just want to slap her awake? Ethan laughed despite himself. It was strange to see Nick so relaxed now. Earlier, he'd been all business. But, Nick went on, suddenly thoughtful, sometimes she'd come talk to me. Out of nowhere. Wait, didn't you tell me she once asked you if you'd seen anything weird? Yeah, just once, Ethan said. That night, I saw the woman hanging in that room. She asked me if I'd seen something and told me to tell her if I ever did again. I thought she was joking, but her face, it wasn't a joke. Nick rubbed his beard, eyes narrowing. Funny, she used to ask me the same thing. You work late, see anything strange in those 2 rooms, she'd say. Always those 2 rooms. Ethan froze. His mind spun, trying to piece together what that meant. There's only 1 empty room now, he said quietly. Back then there were 2, Nick replied. But if we put all this together, it sounds like that girl, whatever her deal is, has some kind of connection to those rooms. Maybe even the things you've been seeing. Ethan nodded slowly. I've thought about that, but it doesn't add up. The candles, the roses, the songs, they all feel romantic, even beautiful in a tragic way. I can't picture that bar girl being part of something like that. Nick smirked. You're judging her too fast, kid. Why can't a girl like her be romantic? Or even noble? Hell, I've met plenty of so-called good girls who'll smile sweet, act polite, and sell themselves in every way that counts. At least this one's honest about who she is. He leaned against the wall, speaking more to himself now. People like to put others in boxes. Cop, teacher, bar girl, whatever. But the world doesn't work like that. Everyone's got their own kind of dignity. Farmers, for example, they work harder than anyone, feed everyone, and still get treated like dirt. But without them, nothing works. It's all connected. That's real honor. Ethan smiled faintly. He wasn't used to Nick's philosophical side. Nick finally straightened. All right, lecture's over. Here's what we're gonna do. We find out what that girl knows. But to get her talking, we need to make her think we've got something she wants too. The photo. The ringtone shattered the quiet of Nick's apartment. Damn it, he muttered, rushing out of the bathroom, towel around his waist. Who the hell calls when a man's half naked? But it wasn't a call. It was a message. And the number made his stomach twist. 84,000. Minus 84,000. Not plus. A number that shouldn't exist. He opened the MMS message. His phone nearly slipped from his hand. The photo showed a young woman hanging from a noose beside another rope that was ominously empty. Beneath her feet lay a wreath of white roses, circled by small white candles burning steadily. Before he could react, the sound icon blinked, and a distorted whisper bled from the speaker. Stay out of things that aren't your business. Cold sweat ran down his neck. Nick stared at the Buddha statue on his shelf and muttered, Well, damn, even ghosts text now. Guess haunting's gone digital. His phone rang again. This time, it was Ethan. Nick? Ethan's voice trembled. When I woke up just now, there was something on my floor, a white wreath, just like the one I told you about from that room. But this time it's real. The candles, the roses, everything. Please come see for yourself. I'm on my way, Nick said, already pulling on his clothes. 30 minutes later, Nick arrived. Out front, he ran into Mark, who was just coming home. Well, look who it is, Mark grinned. Didn't expect to see you here, man. What brings you slumming around this dump? Nick explained briefly, but Mark's face changed when he heard the name Ethan. That weird reporter kid? Mark said. Man, I saw him earlier today buying flowers. He looked spaced out, didn't even answer me when I said hi. He laughed, but Nick's stomach dropped. Inside Ethan's room, the air smelled faintly of wax and roses. The floor was covered by a heart-shaped wreath of white roses, surrounded by half-melted candles. Nick thought if a guy had made this for his girlfriend, it'd be romantic. But in this setting, it was terrifying. He remembered what Mark had said. Ethan, buying flowers? But Ethan claimed he'd slept all day. Was he lying? Or had someone else made this while he slept? Nick snapped a few photos, trying to stay calm. You can clean up now, he told Ethan softly. I'll look into who used to live in that empty room. The landlady's story doesn't hold water anymore. He left the room and went straight to Mark's place. Mark looked shaken, his face pale, eyes red. Nick had never seen him like that before. You okay? Nick asked. I'm fine. Mark said weakly. Just tired. Hey, Luke's in the hospital. Car accident, broke his leg and arm. You should visit him. I'll go later. Nick frowned. Since when? 2 days ago, Mark muttered. He's been drinking hard lately. It was bound to happen. Nick took the address Mark scribbled down and headed for the exit. But as he passed the first room on the right, a voice called softly, Nick. He turned. It was Amber, the bar girl. She stood in her doorway, wearing a loose t-shirt that barely covered her thighs. For a second, Nick thought she wasn't wearing pants at all. She beckoned him inside. Heart pounding, he stepped in. She closed the door behind them, the latch clicking like a trap. Well, Nick muttered to himself, no wonder there are so many assault cases in this city. Amber smiled faintly, but said nothing. Mind telling me why you dragged me in here? He asked. Sorry, she said, sitting on the edge of the bed. No chairs in this place. Sit if you want. Nick hesitated. I saw what was in Ethan's room, she continued. The wreath, the candles, and I saw you taking pictures. You used to live here, didn't you? In that same room. I think you two meeting again isn't a coincidence. Tell me, Nick, what's really happening? He was about to play it cool, but his eyes betrayed him, drifting down to the neckline of her shirt. She noticed. Without a word, she grabbed a robe and disappeared into the bathroom. The frosted glass didn't hide much. Her silhouette moved behind it, every motion clear enough to make Nick curse under his breath. When she emerged, now dressed modestly, she gave him a knowing smile. Better? Nick wiped sweat from his forehead. Much. He met her eyes at last. I know more than you think, but I can't say anything unless you're willing to share what you know first. Amber's hands trembled slightly. And how do I know you're not just saying that to get information out of me? Nick sighed. Fine. Let me ask straight. What's your connection to the girl who hanged herself in that room? Her eyes widened. How do you know about that? Now he had her attention. I told you. We'll get further if we're honest with each other. You tell me what you know. I'll tell you what I've seen. We both want the same thing. Amber buried her face in her hands, tears spilling through her fingers. I've been trying for years. No one believes me. No one helps. After a while, she composed herself, opened a drawer, and pulled out a notebook. From between the pages, she produced a photo. Look at this, she whispered. Nick froze. It was the same photo he'd received from that impossible number. He showed her his phone. You mean this one? Her jaw dropped. How did you get that? Nick smiled grimly. Now we can talk. She pointed at the woman in the picture. That's my sister. Her voice broke. Her name was Lena. Part 5. The Night. Hey, Mrs. Julia, when did you get here? Nick asked warmly as he spotted the middle-aged woman sitting outside Luke's hospital room. Oh, it's you, Nick, her voice cracked. Oh dear, it's been such a nightmare you wouldn't believe. She wiped her eyes, trying to steady herself. I just got here yesterday. That poor boy, my Luke. Her throat tightened again, but she took a deep breath and forced a weak smile. Anyway, I'm sorry, I shouldn't keep you. Go on, visit him. Oh, who's this young lady? This is Amber, ma'am. She's Luke's neighbor. Mrs. Julia's eyes softened. Such a pretty girl. I wish I had a daughter-in-law like you. Amber blushed, fumbling for words. She hadn't felt that kind of shy warmth in years. After so long surviving in nightclubs surrounded by champagne, blaring bass, and men who only saw her body, she thought she'd forgotten how to feel embarrassment or tenderness. She had become numb, living fast, high on pills and powder, trying to drown the void inside her. But no matter how much she danced, no matter how many men she let touch her, the emptiness always returned, deeper than before. She'd been with countless men, rich, handsome, powerful, but none stirred even a flicker of emotion in her. Kisses disgusted her. Touch repulsed her. Every moan, every sigh she gave was practiced, a hollow echo of what once was real. Sometimes, in the middle of it all, she'd even laugh silently at herself, realizing how mechanical she had become. A pretty machine performing pleasure. Plenty of men had fallen for her, even offered her marriage, but she refused every one of them. Somewhere deep down, she was still chasing a ghost, a feeling she lost long ago, maybe the same day her sister disappeared. Nick comforted Mrs. Julia a little, then asked her gently about what happened before seeing Luke. He didn't want to push the boy just yet. She explained, her voice trembling. 2 days ago, Luke was riding home, somewhere near that steep road by Lakeview, or maybe on Pine Hill, I'm not sure. 2 drunk idiots on a motorbike were racing like maniacs. Luke slowed down, but then he saw a toddler, just a few feet ahead, stumbling in the road. If those drunks hit the kid... She stopped, clutching her chest. He didn't think twice. He gunned the throttle and hit them head on. 3 of them went flying. Both bikes smashed to pieces, but that little boy, thank God, was fine. Luke broke his arm and leg. The drunks... No helmets. They're still unconscious. Nick nodded gravely, then thanked her and motioned for Amber to follow him into Luke's room. Inside, the air smelled faintly of disinfectant. The room was small, tidy, 2 beds, but only one was occupied. Luke lay half-sitting, struggling to flip a page in his book with his good arm, the other one encased in thick plaster. "Hey there, hero," Nick said cheerfully. "I'm here to give you your Medal of Honor." Luke looked up, eyes lighting up. "Oh, it's you, hero, huh?" More like a drunk knight crashing into windmills. He laughed softly, then spotted Amber. "Wait, is that Amber? Or am I dreaming? Man, pinch me, I must be hallucinating." Amber giggled, genuinely for the first time in years. Luke smiled wide, his boyish charm lighting up the room. Nick couldn't help but notice Luke was looking at her with open admiration, and Amber's cheeks had turned pink again. Nick gave her the chair and leaned against the wall. After checking that Luke's injuries weren't worse than expected, he said, "So rumor has it you've been drinking a lot lately. What's going on, man? That's not you." Luke's smile faded. He stared at the ceiling, lost in thought. "Yeah, I'm not the same anymore. After you moved out, strange things started happening to me. I thought I could handle it, but..." His eyes flicked toward Amber, his expression suddenly strange. "You know what's weird? She looks just like someone I used to know. How did I never notice before?" Nick stiffened. He put 2 and 2 together instantly. "You mean Lena?" Luke shot up like a spring, ignoring the weight of his cast. "What did you just say?" Now Nick was sure. Luke was connected to everything. The empty rooms, the haunting, the truth. He kept his voice calm. "Listen, Luke, don't panic. I came back here for a reason. It's time we stop hiding what really happened. This young woman, Amber, she's Lena's sister." Luke froze. His lips parted, but no sound came out. Nick went on, "We don't know the full story yet, but maybe your part fills in what we've been missing. You should tell us everything." Luke's eyes shimmered with tears. He pressed his hand to his forehead. "I haven't told anyone. Everyone would just think I'm insane. Hell, maybe I am insane, but I swear, I saw it, I heard it, every damn word." Luke's story. Luke was born in a small rural town in Tennessee. His father died young, and his mother worked herself to the bone to raise 3 kids. When Luke graduated high school, he didn't want her to struggle anymore, so he applied to the State Police Academy. He was smart, disciplined, and endlessly optimistic, the kind of recruit everyone liked. After graduation, he got assigned to Nashville. Despite the city's chaos, Luke stayed true to his ideals. He wanted to be a good cop, to prove that honor still meant something. At first, he stayed in dorm-style housing, but later moved into a quiet, low-rent apartment complex on the edge of town. That was where he met Nick, a freelance journalist who dabbled in architecture and ran a popular local forum. Next door was Mark, a government clerk who'd lived there for years. Across the hall lived Amber, a nightclub dancer. 2 other rooms at the far end were permanently locked. The landlady said they were unfinished and not for rent. Nick, Mark, and Luke got along well. But Amber kept to herself. No greetings, no smiles. Sometimes Luke saw her leaving in the middle of the night with rich men in shiny cars. Other times she'd ask him strange questions about the locked rooms across the hall. When he said he'd never noticed anything, she'd frown and walk away. A few months later, Nick moved out. Not long after, one of the locked rooms was suddenly rented by a quiet, beautiful girl named Lena. She said she was a college student, originally from a nearby town. She was kind, soft-spoken, and her laughter made the dim hallway feel alive. Luke fell for her instantly. Every evening after 6, she'd return from class. They'd talk, share tea, sometimes she'd hum songs by the window. She had a habit of reading her own poetry aloud, sweet, melancholic verses about love, rain, and the loneliness of the city. Luke loved her voice. It felt like sunlight through storm clouds. Then one rainy evening, she didn't come home. Her phone was always busy. Hours passed, then days. Luke couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He reread her poems, every word suddenly heavy with meaning. And then, one night, he heard her voice, whispering through the hallway, reciting her poetry. He ran to the door, and there she was, Lena stood in front of the supposedly empty room at the end of the hall, dressed all in white. Her skin glowed faintly in the dark. She smiled, but her eyes were hollow. "Don't move," she said softly. "If you come closer now, you'll lose me forever." Luke froze. "Do you love me?" she whispered. "Yes," he said, "more than anything. Would you die for me?" Luke's heart raced. "If it means being with you forever, yes." She smiled sadly. "Then come." The door creaked open. Inside, Luke saw her hanging from the ceiling, a noose around her neck, candles flickering beneath her feet. Another noose swayed beside her. Empty. Luke couldn't scream, couldn't move, couldn't think. "Come to me," she said. "We'll be together forever." Something inside him broke loose. His body moved on its own. He stepped onto the stool, reached for the rope, and then from somewhere deep within, a voice tore through him. A single word. Mom. The image of his mother flashed before him, her tired smile, her rough hands, her love. He screamed and kicked the stool away, not to hang himself, but to break free. He collapsed, sobbing. When he looked up, Lena's face had changed. Her ghostly figure looked at him with sorrow. "So," she whispered, "you won't die for me either." And then her voice grew cold. "Then help me. Kill him." Luke's voice trembled as he finished. "After that night, I started losing time. I'd wake up standing outside Mark's door holding a bat or a knife or a stick. Every damn time I'd drop it and run back to my room. I think she wanted me to kill someone. I think she was using me." Nick went pale. "Wait, the 2 empty rooms, you said they're still empty, right?" Luke nodded. "Still empty. No one's touched them." A chill ran through Nick's spine. He fumbled for his phone and dialed. No answer. He tried again. Still nothing. "Mark," he muttered. "Oh God." Meanwhile, in another part of town, Mark sat alone in his apartment, flipping through an old photo album, his most precious memory. He sighed, lost in thought. Then his phone rang. Nick's voice screamed through the line, "Lock your door! Don't open it for anyone! I'm on my way! Do you hear me? No one!" Mark frowned. "What the hell, man?" He hung up, shaking his head. Moments later, there was a knock. "Who's there?" "It's me, Ethan," Mark sighed. "That weird reporter." He unlocked the door. The man who entered smiled faintly. Something in his eyes was wrong. Before Mark could react, a dull thud cracked across his skull. Darkness swallowed him. "Get on the bike," Nick said urgently. "Now." Amber climbed on without a word. The night swallowed them both. The motorcycle roared through the night, tires screaming as Nick tore down the empty streets like a man possessed. He blew past every red light he could, the city blurring into streaks of neon and shadow. At the next intersection, a figure in a police uniform suddenly stepped out, holding up a hand. "Pull over!" Nick slammed the brakes, cursing under his breath. The cop yanked the keys straight from the ignition and shoved them into his jacket pocket. "Damn it, an extra patrol?" Nick muttered. Then, forcing a desperate smile, he said, "Officer, please. I swear I wasn't trying to run the light. I've got an emergency. Someone's in danger." The cop's expression didn't change. "Step off the vehicle and move it to the curb. We'll talk after." "Please, man, I'm begging you." "Step to the curb." The cop's voice was flat, mechanical, like he was reciting a line from a training manual. Frustration flared in Nick's chest. He gritted his teeth, dragged the bike to the curb, and turned back to the officer. "Sir, I'm telling you, it's a matter of life and death." The officer straightened, saluted crisply, then said in the same eerie monotone, "You have violated traffic law. Please present your license and registration." Nick felt something snap. "I don't have time for this." He lunged forward and kicked hard. The blow landed square in the cop's gut. The man folded with a strangled grunt, eyes wide in shock. Before the officer could recover, Nick grabbed the keys from his pocket, jumped on the bike, and barked, "Get on!" Amber didn't hesitate. She swung onto the seat, clutching his back as the engine screamed to life again. They tore off into the darkness. Wind howled in their ears. Amber's heartbeat pounded against Nick's spine, but his mind was somewhere else, burning with adrenaline, dread, and a sick certainty that something far worse waited ahead. Amber risked a glance over her shoulder. Her stomach dropped. Flashing red and blue lights streaked toward them. Police cruisers, motorcycles, even riot vans. "They're right behind us!" She shouted over the wind. Nick didn't answer. He just twisted the throttle harder. The sirens closed in, wailing from every direction. Ahead, more flashing lights appeared. A blockade. Shit. He swerved hard, cutting down a side street, weaving through alleys until the blaring horns began to fade. When they finally burst out onto a wider road, the city was silent again. A street sign flashed by, Fifth Avenue. Nick veered right, heading toward Maple Street. The familiar row of old houses loomed ahead like dark, sleeping faces. 2 minutes later, he killed the engine and let the bike skid to a stop in front of 14th Street. Amber barely had time to catch her breath before Nick jumped off and sprinted toward the alley. She followed close behind. The neighborhood was dead silent. No footsteps, no voices, just the hum of distant traffic. Most of the residents were still out working night shifts. Officer Luke was at the hospital. That meant only 2 people were inside: Mark and Ethan. From halfway down the corridor, a flicker of light caught Nick's eye, a dim orange glow leaking from the crack of a half-open door. He moved closer. The scent of wax and something metallic filled the air. Then he kicked the door open. What he saw made the blood drain from his face. In the center of the dusty room sat a circle of roses, petals scattered like dried blood. Candles flickered all around, casting long, trembling shadows. Behind the floral ring were 2 chairs. Hanging above them, 2 nooses. On the left chair hung a framed photograph. He didn't need to look twice to know who it was. Lena. Kneeling before the altar was a man. His hands stroked the white roses tenderly, almost lovingly. It was Ethan. Next to him, Mark was slumped in another chair, bound, unconscious. Amber gasped. "Ethan, what are you doing?" Nick threw an arm out in front of her. "Stay back." Ethan turned toward them slowly. The candlelight danced across his face, and for a moment, Amber's voice broke into a whisper of terror. That's not Ethan." Nick's eyes narrowed, because he was right. The thing wearing Ethan's face was smiling, too wide, too calm, and in that instant, the room grew colder than death itself. Part 6, Ghost of the Boarding House 1. Amber stammered, her voice trembling. "Nick, what do you mean?" Nick didn't take his eyes off the figure kneeling by the candles. "That's not Ethan, or at least, not the Ethan we know." Ethan turned slowly. His eyes were blank, not human, not animal, just 2 dull glass marbles shoved into his skull. They didn't blink, they didn't feel. Then he pulled a folding knife from his pocket, flipped the blade open with a snap, and pressed it against Mark's throat. The blade glinted, long, thin, and sharp enough that one small push could end everything. Amber gasped, her voice breaking. "Oh God, what do we do?" Nick whispered, keeping his voice low and steady. "Stay calm. Don't startle him. We can't risk making him lash out. Not at Mark, not at himself." He ran through scenarios in his mind, fast and frantic. This wasn't possession in the usual sense, not the kind you read about in folklore. When spirits take over someone, their eyes burn with expression, alive with emotion. That's how they communicate, through the windows of the soul. But Ethan's eyes were dead, empty. No, this was something else, something deeper. Lena wasn't inside his body. She was inside his mind. She'd rooted herself into his brain like a parasite, feeding him hate, guilt, grief, until he became her puppet. That meant she wasn't hearing their words. She was reading their thoughts. Nick realized that every plan, every fear that flashed through his mind might already be known to her. If he even thought about attacking Ethan, she'd sense it and strike first. He needed her to manifest, to use Ethan's body as a voice. It was the only way to reason with her. He closed his eyes, trying to focus his thoughts like a signal through static. "Lena, if you can hear me, come forward, speak to us." But that was the problem. The mind never stays still. Thoughts scatter like leaves in a storm. Fear, doubt, images of blood, the memory of Lena's photo on the floor, the nooses, the roses, everything collided in chaos. After a few moments of desperate focus, nothing happened. Ethan sat frozen, knife still trembling at Mark's throat. The candlelight flickered against the dead stare of his eyes. Then, suddenly, Mark stirred. His eyelids fluttered open, dazed but conscious. He looked at them weakly. "Nick, Amber, get out," he whispered. "This ends tonight. I started it. I have to finish it." Amber grabbed Nick's arm. "Look, his eyes!" The emptiness was gone. Ethan's eyes were alive now, burning, furious, filled with something ancient and vengeful. When he spoke, his voice was distorted, half man, half woman. "You bastard," the voice hissed. "Why are you here? You still can't face me, can you?" Mark's face twisted with grief. "Lena, please, don't do this. You don't understand. I never stopped loving you. You've haunted every breath I've taken since that night." Nick's chest tightened. So it's true, he thought. She's inside him now. Mark went on, his voice cracking. There hasn't been a day I didn't think of you. Not one. Every night, I'd hold your pictures, your letters. I'd talk to you like you were still here. I know I failed you, Lena. I was weak, but my love for you never died. Ethan, or rather Lena, screamed through him, eyes flooding with angry tears. Shut up! Don't lie to me again. Amber broke down. Please stop, both of you. Her sobs filled the room, raw, violent, unfiltered. She'd been so hardened for years, but now she cried like the child she once was. Amber, my little sister. Lena's tone softened. You suffered because of me. Come here, Amber. Let me hold you again. Amber ran forward without thinking, ignoring the knife, ignoring the danger, and threw her arms around her sister's ghost. Lena dropped the blade, trembling as her borrowed hands brushed Amber's tear-streaked face. Nick hesitated. He could have lunged and kicked the knife away, but something told him not to move, not to break this fragile connection. Lena's tone darkened again. Everything that happened to me, it was because of him. She pointed a shaking hand at Mark. Amber turned toward him, eyes blazing. You killed her? Mark stayed silent, his face heavy with guilt. Not exactly, Lena said coldly. He didn't have to kill me. His family did it for him. She turned to Amber, voice trembling with rage. They hated me from the start, said I wasn't good enough. A poor orphan girl wasn't fit to marry into their precious bloodline. They mocked me, cursed me, told me I'd ruin his life. And when they realized I wouldn't back down, they decided to erase me. Tears streamed down her host's cheeks as she continued. We planned to die together, to prove our love was eternal. I made the ropes myself, measured them to be the same length, but I was short, he was taller. When we kicked the chairs away, she paused, voice breaking. I blacked out, but his feet were still touching the ground. He lived. He left me there alone. Lena, no, Mark finally said, voice shaking. You don't understand. Silence! Her voice cracked like thunder. Nick's pulse pounded in his ears. He could feel her grief, raw, electric, almost physical. After I died, she whispered, I saw everything. The pain of losing a body, losing every sense, every taste, every touch. A soul without flesh is like a driver without a car, trapped, desperate, with nowhere to go. Do you know what that feels like, Amber? To crave something you can never have again? Her tone grew almost philosophical, detached. The soul, it's not magic, it's energy, it's thought. And when that thought is consumed by rage, it vibrates like fire. It tears into the living. The peaceful ones move on, but the angry ones, like me, we stay, we linger, we infect. Nick's mind was spinning. So this is how it works, he thought. She's explaining the mechanics of haunting itself. Lena turned back toward Mark. And all my pain, all my agony, started with you. Amber's sobs had gone quiet. Her eyes flicked between them, torn between hatred and pity. Then Nick spoke, steady and clear. You're wrong, Lena. The real enemy isn't Mark. It's your hatred. That's what's been killing you. Not him. Lena's face twisted in confusion. What are you talking about? He took a slow step forward. If you let go of the hate, you'll finally be free. Holding on to it just keeps you chained here, trapped between worlds. Her expression faltered. Free? Mark swallowed hard. Please, Lena. Let me explain. That night, I didn't choose to live. I blacked out. My body, it reacted on its own. They found me unconscious and took me to the hospital. I wanted to follow you. I swear I did. But my parents, they locked me away. I tried, Lena. God knows I tried. He was crying now. For months, I begged for death. They pumped me full of sedatives, watched me every hour. I lost everything. My sanity, my will, my soul. But I never stopped loving you. The room went silent except for the hiss of the candle flames. Lena's borrowed body trembled. Tears rolled down Ethan's pale cheeks as her voice cracked, this time softer, broken, human. I wanted to believe you. The air grew still, heavy with something ancient and fragile, grief starting to turn into release. Part 7, Ghost of the Boarding House 2. Mark's voice was trembling, but his words carried the weight of years buried under guilt. When I was in the hospital, he began, I had time to think, to really think. And I realized something. What we did, what we tried to do, was wrong. Wanting to die together wasn't love, Lena. It was fear. We ran away from the pain instead of facing it. Death doesn't fix anything. It just takes away the chance to make things right. We thought the world was against us. But even in the worst moments, didn't we always have each other? Didn't we laugh through the hunger, cry together through the cold? When my parents bought that house in city and tried to force me to move in, I refused. I stayed in this tiny apartment just to be near you. You remember that night, don't you? You hugged me and cried because you said no one had ever chosen you like that. Lena's body, through Ethan, shuddered, as if old memories were struggling to resurface. Mark went on, his voice breaking but steady. My parents threatened to disown me. They called you a curse, said you'd ruin my life. But none of that mattered to me. I loved you more than my own blood. And yet, that night, when we decided to end it all, I wasn't strong enough to stop you. When I put the rope around my neck, I thought it was the only way to prove my love. But my body betrayed me. I blacked out. I woke up in a hospital bed, alive, and you were gone. Every day since, I've hated myself for surviving. He took a deep breath. When I got out, I went back to this place, our place, but my parents had already paid off the rent, returned the keys. They begged me to move into their new house, to start over. But how could I? What's the point of walls and wealth when the only person who gave them meaning is gone? He looked at her, his eyes red, raw. So I made a promise to myself. I'd never love anyone else. I'd live only to remember you, to honor you, to protect what was left of you. His next words came out in a whisper. To make sure I never broke that promise, I did something I can't undo. Nick frowned. What do you mean? Mark slowly lifted his pant leg and pointed to his right foot, still covered by a dark sock. I cut off my own toes, he said quietly. 2 of them, my little toe and the one beside it. So every time I walk, I remember the pain. I remember you. The room fell dead silent. Amber gasped, covering her mouth. Even Lena, through Ethan's trembling body, stared in disbelief. No, she whispered. You didn't. If you don't believe me, Mark said, eyes closed, look for yourself. Lena's borrowed hands reached down and slowly pulled off the sock. Amber flinched. The foot had only 3 toes left. 2 were cleanly severed long ago, the scars pale and smooth, like healed lightning across skin. Lena collapsed to her knees, crying. Her sobs echoed against the cracked walls. Mark reached out, his voice low, fragile. Please don't cry. Let me finish. He took a breath and continued. When I came back here, our old room was already rented out. So I took another one down the hall, the room I live in now. A few months later, the man renting this room left. He said he kept waking up paralyzed, unable to move, with a woman staring at him from the ceiling. Nick's mind clicked. So this was Mark's original room, not Lena's. Mark nodded, as if reading his thoughts. I started asking around. Turns out no one could stay in either of our rooms for long. Every tenant reported the same thing, nightmares, paralysis, seeing a hanging body. I knew it was you, Lena. You hadn't moved on. You were still here, angry, broken, waiting for me. He paused. At first I wanted to run, but every time I tried, the pain in my foot would flare up, like it was punishing me for being a coward again. So I stayed, but I never came near these rooms again. I couldn't. I was terrified that if I saw you, you'd curse me for surviving. His voice cracked. I watched people move in and out. I saw them get sick, lose sleep, lose their minds. I thought it was your message to me, to remind me I couldn't escape my guilt. Every night I dreamed of you. Sometimes you were quiet, just standing there. Sometimes you screamed, asked me why, and I never had an answer. He smiled weakly through tears. I tried to fight it, you know. I buried myself in books, philosophy, psychology, Marx, Lenin, anything to convince myself that spirits don't exist, that you were just my imagination. For a while it worked. I stopped dreaming about you. People stopped renting these rooms. Life went back to something like normal. He laughed bitterly. Everyone thought I had it together, that I was this rational, grounded man. But every night I'd cry myself to sleep beside your photos and the letters you wrote. That's who I really was. Just a ghost, mourning another ghost. Lena's body shook violently. Her sobs softened into quiet gasps. She looked up, eyes filled with something new, understanding. Mark continued, voice trembling. I know now that I was wrong. I should have lived for us, not died for us. The room was silent again, heavy with grief. Then Nick finally spoke, his tone steady but gentle. So now the truth's out. You both suffered for years because of a misunderstanding. Maybe now it's time to let it end. Lena, can you finally let go? Lena turned to him, her expression calm now, her voice softer than before. You may ask then. Nick nodded. There's something I still don't understand. I never met you, never saw you, but somehow you knew my poems. You recited them through Ethan and Luke. How? Lena smiled faintly, tiredly. You have a strong mind, Nick. You believe in spirits, but you don't fear them. That strength made it impossible for me to appear to you as I did to Ethan or Luke. I couldn't create hallucinations in you, but your thoughts, they resonated with mine. You and I shared the same frequency, the same emotional wavelength. When I was lost between worlds, your mind was like a radio signal I could tune into. I found comfort in it. I read your thoughts, your words, your poems. They soothed me. That's how I learned them. Nick's eyes widened. That explains everything. There were months when I wasn't myself. I was irritable, angry, filled with resentment I couldn't explain. My mother once said a fortune teller told her something dark was following me. That was you, wasn't it? Lena nodded. Yes, my soul was dense with hatred and grief. When I entered your consciousness, those emotions bled into you. You felt what I felt, and you weren't alone. There were others too. Spirits drawn to your energy. Everyone carries them, you know. The good attract kind souls, the wicked attract the damned. That's why people pray to their ancestors. It's not superstition, it's resonance. Nick swallowed hard. So that's why you could never reach Mark? Her eyes dimmed. Because I hated him. I was afraid of what I might see if I entered his thoughts, afraid that every cruel thing I imagined he thought about me might be true. So I stayed away. I hid from the truth because it hurt less than knowing. Amber, through tears, finally spoke. Then why, when I moved into those rooms, couldn't you see me? Why did you push me away? I thought you didn't want me there. Lena turned to her sister, eyes full of regret. Oh, my sweet Amber. I wanted nothing more than to hold you again, but I couldn't. I communicate by influencing the brain, creating visions, but only with people whose mental energy overlaps with mine. You were too strong, too stable. I couldn't reach you. The only thing I could do was project fear, just enough to make others leave. I didn't want anyone defiling the memories in those rooms. That's why everyone felt the pressure, the paralysis. The energy here is thick, magnetic. It overwhelms the living mind. Her body began trembling again, her breathing ragged. I can't hold on much longer, she whispered. My hatred is fading. When it's gone, I'll lose the strength to stay here. I'll become just another wandering soul. Amber's voice broke. No, please, don't go. Not yet. Lena smiled faintly and brushed Amber's cheek. My little sister, you've suffered enough. Promise me you'll live. Be happy. That's all I ever wanted for you. Then she turned to Mark. Her voice quivered, soft but resolute. I'm sorry, my love. After death, I saw so many spirits, couples who died together, trapped in endless longing. They can feel each other's love but can never touch, never hold, never kiss again. That's not peace. That's torture. We were wrong. As long as we live, there's always hope, no matter how small. But in death, even love turns into dust. Her hand loosened the rope around Mark's wrists. Please live, for both of us. Mark's tears streamed freely as he took her hands. Lena, please, she smiled through Ethan's pale face. Goodbye. Her body convulsed once, violently, then went still. Ethan collapsed to the floor, unconscious. The candles flickered out, one by one. Only silence remained. Part 8. The ending. 2 weeks later. Sunday morning, August 16th, 2009. At a cozy cafe on Maple Avenue in Brookdale, a small group sat around a corner table. Nick, Ethan, Mark, and a young woman, someone new, were chatting quietly as they waited for someone to arrive. A motorbike pulled up in front of the cafe. Riding was a young woman, and behind her sat a man, his left arm and right leg still wrapped in thick white casts. A crutch lay across his lap as he steadied himself with his free hand, holding gently onto her waist. It was Luke and Amber. Amber helped Luke off the bike and guided him carefully inside. After a round of warm greetings, Luke glanced curiously at the unfamiliar woman. Nick smiled. Luke, Amber, this is Ellie, a friend of mine. She's been following my online series, The Haunting at the Boarding House, since I first started posting it. Like a lot of readers, she's got questions about, well, everything we went through. He took a sip of coffee, then continued. And Ellie, these are Luke and Amber, two of the main people you've probably recognized from the story. After a few minutes of small talk and laughter, everyone encouraged Ellie to go ahead and ask what she'd come for. She hesitated at first, then gathered her courage. The first thing I wanted to ask, Ellie began, is about Luke and Lena. You said Luke seemed upset when Ethan and Lena started dating, but after that, it's like she just disappeared. What really happened between them? Before Nick could answer, Luke spoke. No, he said quietly. After that night, in the room with the two nooses, I never saw Lena again. I still loved her, but she was gone. I stayed in that place for months, hoping she'd come back, maybe explain everything, but she never did. He paused, looking down. When Ethan moved in, I noticed he started acting strange, sitting outside at night, whispering to no one, staring off like he was lost. That's when I realized she must have appeared to him, like she once did to me, and that hurt, knowing she could show herself to someone else but not to me. Ellie nodded thoughtfully. So Amber was there too, right? When you loved Lena and later when Ethan did, but she never saw her? Amber shook her head. Never. Everything about Lena, what they saw, what they felt, was in their heads. Or maybe she only appeared to the ones she chose. Ellie frowned slightly. There's something else. In the earlier parts of the story, Lena only appeared at night, but later, everything seemed to happen during the day. How come? Nick chuckled softly. That one's on me. I didn't make the timeline clear enough. If you look closely, though, it still fits. Mark saw Ethan buying flowers around noon, but when I visited later, he was already home from work. Then I went to Ethan's room, took photos, stopped by Mark's, heard about Luke's accident, and talked with Amber for a while. By the time we got to the hospital, it was night. So yeah, the real encounters still happened after dark. Lena always appeared in the evening, when people are tired, drained, vulnerable. On Sundays, she rarely showed up. Maybe. Even spirits need to rest. Ellie smiled. Makes sense. Oh, and one more thing. In part 1, the poems. Lena somehow knew the poems you wrote, even though she couldn't have known you back then. How's that possible? Nick raised an eyebrow. That. Let's just say that'll be explained clearly in part 4. Ellie laughed. I'll be waiting. But one last question. That MMS photo you got, the one supposedly sent by Lena, what was that? Nick hesitated, for once genuinely unsure. That, he said slowly, I honestly don't know. Maybe it was real, maybe it wasn't. My only guess is that maybe her spirit existed in some form of electromagnetic energy, something that could interfere with a phone signal. But even that sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? Just then, Nick's phone buzzed. He excused himself and stepped away to answer. His expression shifted as he listened, a faint smirk, a nervous scratch at his chin. Finally, he said, All right, I'll get back to you soon. Don't panic. Then he returned to the table. What was that about? Mark asked. Nick stirred the melting ice in his cup. Looks like I might have another case to dig into. Another paranormal story. This one's not as bizarre as ours, but from what I've heard, it's just as tragic. Amber sighed playfully. Oh no, so we're not part of the new story? I'm already missing being one of your main characters. She giggled and glanced sideways at Luke. Luke grinned. Hey, whatever he writes, I just hope he still visits us at the old place sometimes. You went off the radar after everything that happened. When I was in the hospital, if it weren't for Amber taking care of me, I probably would have died of loneliness. Amber blushed, her voice barely a whisper. Don't say that. Nick laughed. Uh-oh. I think someone's trying to turn back time to their teenage years. Everyone burst out laughing. Luke leaned back, smirking. Nah, I like it when the buffalo pretends to be a calf. The calves are cute, but touch one and you might end up in handcuffs, right, sweetheart? Amber gasped and playfully smacked his shoulder. You're impossible. The cafe filled with laughter, warm, human, and alive after so many nights of darkness. When the laughter finally faded, Ethan looked at Nick. So, what's the new story called? Nick thought for a moment, eyes distant. Maybe, he said softly, The Ghosts of Hawthorne Street. Nick thought it was finally over, but when his phone rang that night, a cold voice whispered from the other side, You're next. Maybe the curse didn't end with them. Maybe it just found a new address. If you felt the chill, leave a comment saying I believe, subscribe for more true horror stories, and remember, some doors should never be reopened.